Good morning, all. Good morning. Mary Ann Silva, Wareham Town Clerk. As you know, as Town Clerk, I have 3 budgets. Would be the clerk's budget, elections and registration, and town meeting. The clerk's budget, basically, there isn't any real increases other than the wages, and that's based on contracts. So it doesn't include the clerk. The clerk did not get a raise. It would be just the 2 staff that are in the Wareham Clerical Union. But basically, everything else I tried to keep level funded, as we were instructed to do. Elections is a different story. You know, it's a presidential year, so we have an election scheduled in October. Let me just find my schedule. Actually, they're all the 6th. It's amazing. We have a state primary September 6th, then we have the presidential election November 6th, and then we have our April 6th annual town election, 2013. Town meeting budget, I guess there was some question about the salaries because there was an increase. However, what I did is our town moderator kept the meeting in October to 2 nights. So for 2 nights, for all my staff, it came out to $920. The police department is separate from that item, and we paid the police, there were 2 police officers, $441.96 for those 2 nights. So I tried to keep it to a minimum. However, if there is a problem, and Claire has it pretty well down pat, unless we go a marathon, if there is an issue, I would come before you for a reserve fund transfer.
No, that would never happen.
I know. That would not in the town of Wareham.
Coming before us and getting it could be 2 things.
Yeah.
I thought there was the town meeting expense was extremely optimistic in light of the budget.
We try to remain optimistic. That's what we try to do. I also, I did get the amounts for the advertising, and it was, it came out to $3,030 for October to advertise the warrant.
Okay.
So I'm trying to convince Mr. Andrews to put it in 1 newspaper rather than 2, but I'll work on that.
Okay. Wasn't that also part of the fact that there was a problem, one paper missed it, and that caused a delay in the town meeting or something? Isn't that part of why we went to 2?
Well, they were late, yeah, putting it in the newspaper. But he uses 2. He's trying to balance it out, but the rules say 1.
Rules say 1.
We only need to put it in one newspaper of general circulation.
Okay.
So.
That's 2. What was your, I'm sorry, any questions?
You said you didn't get an increase because just your 2 department heads. Is that because you have to go before town meeting for yours?
No, usually I would come to Mr. Andrews and tell him that I wanted a raise, but it was explained to me that we were level funding everything. So that's why I didn't ask for a raise.
Oh, she's sweet.
Yeah. My husband didn't feel that way, but anyway.
Don't let her deceive you. She's taking stock options.
Yeah, I wish.
Mr. Paulson.
Yeah, so I have one question. I think this goes back perhaps 2 years where you were in the process of digitizing your records or some of the records. Where does that stand now?
Well, Nancy Miller, actually, because I went on vacation for 2 weeks, Nancy Miller had given me a proposal because she wanted to work with me on it. Because we can go through CPA for the funding. However, as you all know, CPA, it hasn't been the greatest as far as funding. So that is pretty well what's delayed going forward with that. But Nancy Miller has been really great. She wants to work with me, and we will be working on that.
But I thought we had appropriated some monies at town meeting a couple of years ago to take at least some of the records and either keep them or their equipment was going to be brought in here.
No. What we did was you took money to revamp my safe. My safe was revamped.
I remember that, but I don't want to deliberate and say no, it's no. But I'm almost certain that something was done.
Wasn't through my office.
I thought that you had talked about in the future trying to do this.
Right, through CPA.
But I do recall the safe.
So do I.
The only other thing that appears on my radar was the cost of this birth certificate business that she was going through last year. But other than that, I don't recall that.
You'd know certainly.
I would also caution members to please speak up because the acoustics are pretty bad in the room. Sorry, I was multi-directional. If we're too soft, they don't pick it up. And I hear about it from the public. Mr. Trudell.
Could you review again to me the election dates that you're facing this year?
Sure.
I apologize for the time here, but it's important.
We have 3 elections in for the fiscal year 2013. It's the state primary on September 6th, 2012. Presidential election is November 6th, 2012. And our annual town meeting would be April 6th, 2013. And just to let you know, the September 6th primary was moved because it was supposed to be, I think, September 18th or something like that, and they moved it up to September 6th. And please keep in mind, I know this budget has increased, but we have now gone back to 6 polling locations. So we've gone back to the schools, which means now I have to have officers, where before I had them combined, it will now be separated. So
So you're saying precinct 4 and 5?
are going to remain at Deacon's.
Okay.
And precinct 2 will now go back to Hammond. Precinct 3 will go back to Minot Forest.
If I might, why was that done? I'm just curious.
Why was it?
Why did, we used to go to the Minot at one time, then the
Right.
Veterans Memorial, that was just fine, it didn't seem that crowded. Now we're going to go back to Minot.
Well, what happened was, I was approached by Mr. Rabinovich and Mrs. Fernandez at the time. That was about 4 years ago. They asked me to remove my precinct from Hammond School. There was talk about not having enough room in the school, so it's a lot of work to move a precinct. So my feeling was, if I was going to move precinct 2, I might as well move 3 also. Because if they were asking me to vacate one school, chances are they were coming to ask me to vacate a second one. So that's why that change had occurred.
And now there's been a change in sentiment?
Well, because now he's, after it was brought out in the public that we were being evicted from Deacon's, he decided to work with me, which was a good thing.
Good, okay.
It's
good.
public buildings, so.
All right, that's terrific, thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Foley?
How has your revenue been different since now? Has there been any change since you can't do passports and all of that anymore? Do you feel a loss there at all?
Well, it's a little bit of a change, but we do so well with the vital records, because that's our main draw, that I really don't pay attention. Because what we were bringing in with passports was probably about between 20, I think it was about 15, 20,000 a year, when you did well. But it wasn't definite. Do you know what I mean? There would be some years where we would do very well with passports, and then the post office also does them, so it would depend. So we really don't miss it. And we're also now not selling hunting and fishing licenses. That ended as of December 31st. But that was a very small revenue. So.
Any other questions? Mr. Trudell?
In both your office and the elections, there's other purchase services. I don't know if you touched on that already, but that involves the police department or?
No, you're talking about the account for other purchase services.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for elections, it would involve the touch marks machines, the coding of the AccuVote machines.
So we don't own those machines?
Well, the state has given them to us on loan,
Oh, okay.
but it is our responsibility to code the cards.
Got it. Thank you.
And you said for the clerks?
Yes.
other purchase services would be the bonds. We have to be bonded. We purchased the Hasco Tag Company for the dog tags. University Products, which is our books to put our vital records in. You have to keep them in the, I'm trying to think of the name. It's the resistant.
Acid-free.
Acid-free, thank you. So we have, and those are expensive. That also includes my associations, and that's it. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Cap his budget for us.
Yeah, I
and,
think so. I think Matt's
the
pretty
salient
well
points,
done for his budget.
And they'll ask him lots of questions.
All right. We met last night with the town administrator and Derek to review my budget before we met with you. In my original request, I had included as far as salaries a full-time assistant. We had discussed in Derek's budget here. We've included a part-time. The sheet that I handed out is actually a breakdown of each line item and all the detail that makes up each line item. Whether it be maintenance, what that maintenance is for, what the software is for, what vendor it is, application. To help at least yourselves make your decision on the budget. As far as the budget itself, pretty much I tried to keep level funding for everything, with the exception of, if you look at my sheet, the areas that are highlighted in orange actually are areas that pertain to the new virtualization project that we're trying to wrap up. It's additional software licensing that and equipment maintenance that we're now going to encumber going forward. The only one that we're not going to, is only a short term, is the Microsoft Office piece, the Microsoft licensing, the $62,000 increase in that. What that is the actual cost for the licensing of the project ended up being $170,000. Unfortunately, the vendor only included in their proposal 1/3 of that. So when we spoke with Microsoft and Mark Andrews, the decision was made to see if we could extend that licensing over a time period. In this case, we did it over a 3-year installment. The first year being included in part of the project, and then the next 2 years would be added to the budget. Year 3, that figure would drop down. Microsoft wouldn't give me an exact figure, but their going price right now is somewhere just under $20,000 to keep our licensing up to date with Microsoft. The important piece of that is the fact that with this licensing, if we keep up with it, as new software comes in, we'd automatically have access to that without having to repurchase it. For instance, right now we got Microsoft Office 2010 is what we're implementing. As soon as the new version comes out, we'd automatically get it. Current going price is $400. Our price, $400 per user, times 100 users, 200 users, that's $200,000. As long as we keep up with that software assurance licensing, we wouldn't have to encompass those types of expenses again. Other than that, everything else, is broken down on that sheet. Other purchase services, the website goes to our virtual town hall vendor, permitting, betterments, our software with our financial vendor, Vadar. That's their annual maintenance costs are all included in there. The areas that are actually highlighted in blue on there are actually areas that we do hit the school back on when it comes to net school spending at the end of the year. So depending on what the decision between administration and the school is on the percentages, the town does get a portion of those areas highlighted in blue. We do get returned back to us through net school spending. Other than that, the budget itself, at least for the IT department, is pretty much the same as last year, with the exception of the areas highlighted in orange, which are pertaining to the new equipment that we are in the process of implementing now.
Questions? Questions, Mrs. Cattouli?
Thank you. Just under your orange highlights here, you explained the software licensing. Can you just briefly explain the other two so I understand what they are?
All right.
Citrix and the whatever.
Citrix is the application that we're using. Actually, it's for Vadar. We currently use it now for our Vadar application. What that is, that allows us to make the application web-based. In this case, we're able to access financial applications via the web. In this case, we've just increased the number of users from the 20, 30 users that we currently have now with the financial applications to now all users. So those licenses went up from 30 users to 150 users. So that's what the increase in that was for. And we're virtualizing to the desktops, so that's all the virtual desktop licensing that we're not going to need to keep up with on an annual basis. The other item is the EMC annual maintenance. EMC is the manufacturer of the storage array that has come with the virtualization project. We have one storage array here at Town Hall, and we have one at the police station that will be replicating each other. In case disaster recovery, one site goes down, the other site is already replicated with all the images and the data from the other site. That is the annual maintenance from the manufacturer to keep up with any updates in code, as well as any support that we may need, telephone support. That does not include any on-site in case something really does happen to happen. But then the last one is just the secured socket layer. Those are the SSL certificates that we had to purchase in order to implement the virtualization project. What those are basically the URL addresses that allow us to connect remotely to the system.
Okay, thank you.
If anybody's off-site, they'll be able to log in remotely and access their data, their information, without actually having to be on-site.
Mr. Paulson?
The replication, you said that between you and the police station, or between Town Hall and the police station here, do we have any plans, or perhaps it's in the process of being done, where we would replicate outside of the town? In other words, to be sure that if it's a town-wide problem, that we're safe because it's out in Nebraska or something.
Yep, to a storage facility.
Yeah.
I have looked into that. It is quite expensive. And right now I'm hitting you guys with a lot of things already and still trying to deal with our financial woes that we have. So even though we're replicating, even though we're currently storing backups to disk, we're also backing up to tape and taking the tapes off-site. Ideally, yes, I would love to have off-site storage to a facility, Iron Mountain or someplace. The municipal IT from around the state have created a consortium. They meet once every other month. The state itself has created 2 data centers, one just outside of Boston and one in the western part of the state. Those data centers are basically vacant, waiting for a disaster to happen. We have been in communication with the state, trying to see if the state would allow local municipalities to utilize those data centers that are just sitting there doing nothing, to allow us to store our data off-site. Those communications and negotiations are still ongoing, but that's what we're looking at or hoping for. But yes, I would definitely love to have an off-site storage facility, where we back up, once a week or once a month,
How expensive is, you say it would be very expensive, how expensive is expensive?
Well, for the amount of data that we're looking at somewhere around $500 to $800 a month.
$500 to $800 a month, aside from what you have for EMC here, where you're going back and forth from the police station.
Well, that is the annual maintenance with the manufacturer on the equipment, the support and updates, as to repairs and patches that come out on the equipment. The actual replication is being done internally between here and the police station for all our data, so that if one site goes down, the other site can continue maintaining up and running, and it would be just a matter of us, pointing to a different location, the end user.
Let me see if I understand you correctly. Are you saying that the replication outside of town, for getting the police station up, to take our data and/or the police department's data, the combined data, and sending it off to wherever, Nebraska, or whatever, would cost us only $800 a month?
It's the prices that I've been looking at and the quotes that I've been getting so far for the amount of data that we have so far. For the amount of data that we're looking to replicate and back up is $500 to $800. If we were to increase the amount of data that we have, include the school department storage array, for instance, or something, obviously the more data that you send, the higher the price is going to be. But for the amount of data that we have and that we're backing up, we're looking at, $500 to $800. It was about $500 for my site, including the police department. It's up to about $800 now.
Are other towns doing that?
Cities are. A lot of towns don't.
Sounds like cheap insurance to me.
It certainly is insurance. It's not something that, obviously you're also dealing with bandwidth. You're sending terabytes worth of data over your internet connection. So it's not something that you want to do on a daily basis. It's something that you would probably pick a Sunday evening, when hopefully, nothing's going on. But again, it's a fail-safe.
Yeah.
Mrs. Brown?
Matt, I see we've got a vacant spot. Now, we've never had an assistant, have we?
Yes.
We did.
The last person that filled that position has been gone for going on 4 years now.
Okay.
The position was actually the funding for the position was removed under a former town administrator in order to fill his assistant position, to create an assistant position. And then the last couple of years, it's been funded as part-time person. We got as far as advertising last year, but we never actually interviewed or hired anybody.
Did we use the money that we had budgeted?
Last year's, the money that's in this year's current budget, fiscal 12, is still sitting there. We have not advertised this year.
So we haven't used it in another area of
Not
expense?
to my knowledge.
Mr. Brown, you can do
No, go ahead, let Mr. Trudell go first.
Mr. Katsoulis also has a question.
The last item that I had on the software issue on update of our computer system was an overrun of about $168,000.
Correct.
Has that number increased?
That's probably up to about 170 right now. There's been a couple of more bills that have come in.
And where does that number appear in your budget here?
That's $62,000 for the Microsoft licensing. That was split up into a 3-year payment. Is basically 124,000 of that.
Got the wrong one. Well, we're gonna play together nicely. We're just, I hear another software. See it? It's right there.
Okay.
I don't know what you're looking at.
And that figure would be for fiscal 13 and 14.
The 124.
120,
That's what it is, but there's other items in
124,000. Of that, 170 would be,
There leaves $46,000.
Yep.
Where is that?
you probably have to ask the town administrator.
I will
I
interpret
don't
that
know at
as-
this point.
I will interpret that response as that you're not allowed to speak about it.
It's out of my control.
Don't even go any further. I just get in trouble. I don't want to do that.
I get last shot.
Mrs. Cattouli, you had a question?
Yeah, if we could go back to the part-time or the assistant,
Yes.
okay? And maybe Derek can help me out with this. In the budget book, it's listed as a part-time at 20 hours at $23,009. And is your budget with the 53-1?
Yep.
Is that at a full-time? Is that what you're?
That was at a full-time position as of what the current personnel plan, or what the person had left at, step 1 at that grade rate.
Okay, so what you're looking really for is a full-time position? Is that what you're-
Well, I was looking for a full-time position. There are a number of projects that are still on the list. We're looking to automate 42 pumping stations in town. It's going to take time and resources just to install the software in those places, as well as they're looking at installing video in all those. We're looking at trying to do something as far as document management. We're trying to implement a complaint tracking system, as well as, we still need to deal with the outdated equipment at the library. That was not included in this virtualization project. We have, we still need to try to automate, planning, zoning, and conservation. I'd like to try to get them implemented and automated to coincide with our building permit program. As well as we still have a number of older databases that we developed in-house, 10 years ago, dog licensing, harbor service permits, all these types of things, software that needs to be addressed. Our license for VADAR financial applications is up July 1. We still haven't renewed that. Are we switching to a new vendor? That requires data conversions. All these types of things, require resources. As we automate processes to take work away from departments, unfortunately, IT picks up the other side of that. And the video surveillance seems to be a big issue lately. We're now installed video surveillance updated the video surveillance at the police station. We've installed video surveillance at the harbor master's office on the pier. We've installed video surveillance at the sewer department. The library is looking to install video surveillance. It takes time and resources. And we're now GPS tracking the vehicles at the sewer department. So now that that's starting, I can see that implementing and expanding to municipal maintenance in all other town vehicles.
Can Derek follow up with that, Mr. Chairman?
Pardon?
Can Derek follow up as to whether in this budget it says vacant assistant grade 8, step 1, question mark, question mark, question mark. So he's looking at maybe a part-time position, is that what I'm interpreting it?
That could move it as a part-time position, because I think we did put it out last year. We did get a number of applications, but I don't think they met the needs.
We never ever actually got to the point of the interview process. By the time they wanted to do the interviews, it was 3 months later. Then there was confusion as to whether or not they wanted to send out the advertisement again for new applicants, or continue on. We ran into some budget issues, and it just never got filled.
Thank you.
My question, my question, Derek, is did we use the money for the salary for something else?
From last year?
Yes.
I don't believe we went into those wages for
I said
anything
no.
from your department.
It either went back to free cash, or at the end of the year, the town accountant may have done some transfers to transfer it to other departments that were short. Honestly, I don't know myself.
No transfer was done, that I know of.
That would be,
Mr. McDonald, who's been waiting very patiently, everyone else I think has had a question too. Well, if you keep passing, you're never going to get recognized. Mr. Goodell.
you can bet I can get my shot at that.
The Finance Committee had the opportunity to sit down with the school committee to listen to some of their issues that dealt with their process. Is there anywhere in your budget that deals with interfacing, working with the school department? Because I know you're one man, but
No, there is not. Long story short, no.
Long story short.
The school department is without their network administrator and their technology director. They chose not to fill those positions, and now they're down to just a couple of techs, and then each building has its own first round, I guess, tech support people, but they actually maintain and manage, oversee the labs that the students use. So they really can't leave those buildings. They've got classes going on. So that really leaves just their 2 techs that deal on their side, and they're overwhelmed on that part too. I know there has been discussions in the past, a thought process. I think it came up at one of the capital meetings, trying to combine the staffs into one department.
the reason I asked that question was, listening to the school department, they indicated that they are in dire straits in regards to this. And now you tell me that their information technology director and the assistant aren't in their budget. Doesn't look good town-wise, in what direction we're going, since you seem to be the only.
Well, the town spends a lot of money on technology. For us, it's a once-a-decade thing. In the school department, they have to spend so much to keep their funding on an annual basis. I've actually been working with the superintendent over the last month about trying to get some type of an audit kicked off. He has asked me to do the audit for the school department. And I told him I am not able to do that audit for them, but I've been working with him to try to find, vendors to actually do an audit of their stuff so that he can have a physical report that says, here's where our deficiencies are, and here's what we need to do, whether it be replacing staff, whether it be training staff, whether it be hiring all new people. You won't know until that is done.
Thank you very much.
Mr. McDonald? I've got a
You
decision.
should have let me go first because I had 3 questions at that point, and now it's kind of, I'll try to go slow. But first off, for the backup device and disaster recovery, they charge by the gigabyte. And if you can get it for $500 to $800, that's pretty reasonable, because I can assure you we pay more than that at our place, and we don't have as much information as you have.
So it does get expensive.
It is
And,
extremely expensive.
Unfortunately, it's like, the advertisements you see on TV for a computer. Yeah, you can buy a computer for $400. You can't use it in a business environment.
Yeah.
You know, in the same, you know, you can get it for, you know, $5 a month through Semantic, you know, but you're talking about 50 megabytes. You
Yeah,
know,
not
by the time
talking
you start
about
gigging terabytes, you know, it adds up.
Yeah, that's something we realized over a period of time as we incur more data, more storage, and it costs us more money. So, and now that we're backing up 3 servers and we have a BDR on site, it's an extremely expensive thing. And you know me, I like IT, even though I sometimes get real confused by it. A couple more questions. Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe somebody up here knows it. Department of Revenue report, as well as the audit, recommends that you had an assistant. Is that correct?
Yes.
And yet we still have no assistant. We put it in the budget, but we don't have an assistant. How do we go about making sure that we correct that Department of Revenue hot point? And how do we go about that? Can we do anything as a finance committee, or?
Well,
That's
it's,
sort of out of the,
Okay, well,
Change
it's
the
in the
budget.
budget, and we're
it's in the
still-
budget, but I
Okay.
think what you're asking is probably inappropriate to ask Mr. Underhill.
Okay, well, we'll ask that another
It should
time.
be asked to to the Board of Selectmen or to the town administrator.
I was sitting here quietly until you said that the Microsoft licenses were included in your software. If I was at town meeting. Was that not part of the article that was approved? Was the software licenses were in the article?
that was to be included in the project, correct.
Okay, so you're now talking $162,000 of additional expenses over the $400,000 that we approved at town meeting.
Correct.
So you're talking $562,000 when we only approved $400,000.
Correct.
Okay. 'Cause
That's up to about 570 now.
That opens up another can of worms that's not budget, and I'll leave that one alone for now, but I just want to make sure that we were all talking about the same thing on that one. The other thing is, what are the plans, anything in the software have anything to do with the mail system and making it a much more easier thing to deal with?
The email?
Yes.
I had not planned on upgrading that. You know, one of the things that we do have the ability with the new licensing agreement that we have with Microsoft is we could actually install our own Exchange server in-house and manage the email internally instead of externally.
So you're using hosted Exchange right now?
We're using a hosted Exchange server, correct. Our ISP is actually hosting it. They're hosting it for the school department as well as the police department's emails as well. It was the off-the-state contract. It was the cheapest one that we could find at the time. Yes, there are some ongoing issues. Some people do have a tough time working with it. But no, at this moment in this budget, I did not include anything for changing our email server.
I'll let you off. Thank you very much. So you answered my question.
Mr. Paulson?
I have 2 questions that immediately come to mind, and they're really not joined at the hip. I do want to touch on this VADAR. You mentioned VADAR. We have to renew the license on July 1st of this year.
To my knowledge, the contract expires July 1st.
Do we have an idea as to what the cost is going into the next fiscal year? And tied to that, is it in the budget?
Yes. What I did was I did speak to them, and our annual maintenance would not change with them, which is the $52,507 under other purchase services, actually highlighted in blue. That is the annual maintenance for VADAR. I'm assuming at this point we're now halfway through January. We're not changing our financial applications. I would hope that if we were changing our financial applications, that we would go through a whole assessment process, an interview process that would include all departments, and to do that in 5 months, as well as a complete conversion of data, is unrealistic. So I have included in my budget the annual maintenance to renew that contract at least for 1 year. Obviously we have a new accountant coming in, or a firm. My suggestion normally is, every few years, you should take a look to see what else is out there. You never know when something is better or not, but, it'd be really unrealistic to switch vendors and do a complete assessment as well as a data conversion in less than 5 months.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. My second question gets back to a question I asked Ms. Miller when she was here, and something that I've talked to you about in years gone by, and that's the use and the re-implementation of our GIS system, which she seemed quite enthused about. Is there anything that, from your standpoint that you can see, it's not in any of your budgeting here, but is there anything that you can see as being beneficial from your standpoint?
I do have included in my budget here, and it's actually under, other professional services, the annual subdivision updates is $2,300. That's about what it costs us now. I have kind of taken the reins since we've been without a town planner for so long. The town planner is actually in charge of GIS, unless his job description has changed. I don't think so. So while we were without a town planner, I had at least to keep up with the annual assessor's changes of the subdivisions, so at least it was getting implemented. The state has now, through Mass Highways and Mass GIS, have contracted out half a dozen firms to go out and regenerate all the GIS system for the whole state, for every municipality. We had been working with them last summer to get our records up to date and straight with them and verify mismatch types of information. We did run into a snag where there was a question of our borders from what we have based on the deeds in our borderlines to where Plymouth and Carver have their borderlines. There's about 100 feet discrepancy. They had been working together between basically the three communities as well as themselves to try to straighten out that issue on the GIS. That's been holding up. I have heard that data will be soon released to the local planning consortiums. In this case, our case, SERPED, will get our data, and then they will send it down to us. The state's goal was to get every municipality on GIS, including the smaller communities that didn't have it, to give them access to a GIS and put everybody at the same level, same scale that they were using on their GIS. So now that has been pretty much completed. As soon as we get it, then we will sit down, obviously, with the town planner, the assessor, and any other departments, and discuss what it is, how we want to implement it, and move forward. Do we need a new plotter? Do we need a new digitizer ourselves? Do we need, obviously, I would love to be able to get a plotter that allows us to scan, these large maps. We've got file cabinets and file cabinets of maps sitting around, of the town pier, buildings, roads. Every time somebody submits an as-built plan or, building plans for a new house, it would be nice to just scan those into a database somewhere, link it to the GIS, so that, you click on it, you see exactly where the house is, you see exactly where, what the building plans are. But that's something that, we need to start moving forward. Unfortunately, the new town planner is, being part-time, has been trying to catch up with years of not having a planner, and a few projects that are going on in town, like Walmart and the Route 28, Route 6 construction project that's coming up by the state. It's tough to dig our hands into something that hasn't been updated in a number of years. So now the state is doing that for us and taking away that cost. As soon as we get that back, we'll then be able to start utilizing it.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Underhill, I want to thank you. You're a very busy man.
Any questions on the communication side, or is that pretty much straightforward?
Communication is pretty much the cell phones, correct?
Each department pays for their own cell phones. Last year, a couple of years ago, we moved it from departments' responsibilities to administration. This current fiscal year in 12, we moved it back to the department's responsibilities. So, obviously, cell phones here only includes my cell phone, the IT tech at the police department, a cell phone, and that's it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, that was also noted in the Department of Revenue report that Matt can't look at all the cell phone use. Charge the departmental leadership team to do that for us because
Right, so spread it out, that's fine.
good.
Well said. So, and the main phone system comes through communications here.
The repair and maintenance is on the annual maintenance, for the phone systems in town. Obviously, telephone, that's lines. We have reverse 911 now, that we've had for the last couple of years. That's out of here. Then obviously the internet access, that's our ISP. For here, the police station, that also includes all the email boxes that are associated with it.
It's pretty straightforward.
So,
Any questions? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Again,